Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Louise Nealon, author of the debut novel Snowflake. Louise, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Sure. Well, if someone hasn't yet heard about your novel Snowflake, how would you describe the novel?
I would describe Snowflake as a coming-of-age novel. It's about a young woman called Debbie who lives on a farm in rural Ireland. She's 18 and she's about to start university. She's quite a strange and strained relationship with her mother, Maeve, who is quite mentally unwell and believes that she's able to dream other people's dreams. And she thinks that she's passed this ability on to Debbie. And Debbie is really skeptical about that and just thinks her mom's kind of mental, unironically. And she's quite close to her Uncle Billy, who lives in a caravan in a field at the back of her house. And Billy kind of reassures her that university is the way out of home and the way out of her really dysfunctional relationship with her mother. So Billy's trying to get Debbie on the straight and narrow. So yeah, it's a coming of age film. It's a coming of film book. It's a coming of age book. All about leaving home for the first time and trying to discover who you are on your own 2 feet, whichever one goes through, I think.
Well, do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to writing the novel Snowflake?
Yeah, I remember it really well, actually, because I was 18 at the time, and I had a really strange dream. And I woke up in the middle of the night, actually. It was a nightmare. And it really unsettled me because the dream actually, it was a really boring dream to the extent that I can't really remember what was in it. Which is not useful for interviews like these. But I remember the feeling of being absolutely terrified because I didn't recognize any of the content of the dream. And so I thought that I was going mad. And in many ways, Maeve, in the novel, who is Debbie's mother, is kind of like a projection of how I saw my future self if I didn't get the help that I needed. So I very much had to give my dream obsession to Maeve in order to write the rest of the novel. And yeah, it was something that I really struggled with because it's not really something that you can. I remember telling my doctor, and he just referred me to a psychiatrist for a more extensive conversation. And then the psychiatrist just put me on medication, and I went to talk therapy, but it didn't really. It was very much a trial and error thing with therapy for me. I've been to a lot of therapists over the year, more than I've been on dates, and I'm still single. So, but it's a mixed bag going to therapy, and finding a good therapist is difficult and it's hard work. Finding that person that you just connect with, and there's a therapist in this book as well, that she kind of has weird professional boundaries that kind of leak. I don't think she'd be, she would be fired definitely if she was a part of any business. But yeah, I'm really interested in the things that are kind of mysterious and things we don't really know about, and the book is about naivety too, and how naive you are as a teenager and as a young person, and how we're all still a bit naive. Nobody really properly grows up, and I don't know an awful lot myself, and I think there's value in that. So
sure. Well, what was your writing journey before you wrote Snowflake? Was this the first time you had sat down to write fiction, or what was your journey before that?
So I always loved writing stories. So before Snowflake, my most famous story was the story that I wrote in primary school. I was about 8 or 9. and we were set an exercise by our teacher to write accident at the North Pole. So I wrote a story about Rudolph becoming sick and his nose turned from red to brown, and so he couldn't guide the sleigh. And I was reading the dictionary at the time, and I skipped ahead. I dipped in and out, but S was the current letter that I was focusing on, and I really wanted a disease that you could kind of like be cured from. So the teacher called me up in like kind of like whisper it to me, like, do you know what this word is that you've written in your essay? And I was like, yeah, syphilis. Rudolph's got syphilis, but he was cured from syphilis, and he was able to like guide the sleigh again. So like I always sort of, people ask me about like like writing professionally, um, but I'm very unprofessional about writing, if I'm honest. I did English in college, and I did a master's in creative writing. But it was that idea that I had when I was 18 that kind of made me want to be a writer and to pursue the story, because if I was able to do any other job and do writing on the side, that's what I would do. But it's just turned out that I got really lucky, and I'm able to write full time at the minute, and I'm so grateful for that, because it's not a lot of things that it's not a lot of people who get to do it. So
Sure. So what was the writing process after you had this job? Did you end up writing Snowflake as part of your master's?
yeah.
Or after you had this dream?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to college, and the book went through a series of phases. I was writing short stories at the same time, and some of the characters in the book were in different short stories, and then I realized that they're actually part of the same story. Um, I, I didn't write during college at all, to be honest. I'm a massive procrastinator. Um, and when you're in college, you're reading all the greats, and it's just so depressing then to go into a blank Word document, and you're so disappointed in what comes out. So it was only after college I did a module in creative writing in my final year of college, and that was kind of that encouraged me, that writing could be a thing that I could do. And so yeah, I when I did my master's, I did write Snowflake, but it was like I've tried to tell this story in so many different ways, in the third person, in the first person, in the past tense, in the present tense. There's been so many drafts, and yeah, it's a book that kind of like, it reads easily. You could read it in a day, um, but that didn't necessarily reflect in the writing process. I wish that it came as easily to me, but it didn't. It was hard work.
I'm curious, are you working on another novel now?
I am. I am. Speaking of procrastination, uh, I'm working on a second novel, and I'm having great fun with it. Actually, I all of the I still have quite. I'm quite hard on myself as a person. But with Snowflake, I had a lot of emotional baggage that I've kind of like let go of now, and I'm not as precious about what I'm writing. I read somewhere there's a quote that says, "The writing isn't inside you; it's in front of you." And that really resonates for me, because I was quite precious about writing when I was younger, and I was like, no, you don't understand. The story I have inside me is a masterpiece, and it's full of like torment and, agony, and I feel like if only I could get it right. And now I know that I can't, like, there's no way of getting it completely right. And it doesn't exist unless you actually write. And so I'm having fun messing up. um, the first draft of the second novel, but I'm getting to know the characters as well. Because I spent 10 years with the characters in my last novel, so it's really like making a new set of friends. And yeah, it's fun to be with new presences, if that doesn't sound too strange.
No. So what writing advice would you offer for those who are listening who are working on their own stories and novels?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is not to be too hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself and make the writing process as comfortable as you can. So, writing is often seen as this kind of like mystical exercise that only certain people can do. But that's like the biggest load of I can't. It's just not. It's not magic. It's just showing up. It's just actually writing, turning up to a laptop and typing as I do, or making notes in a journal. I make a cup of tea, light a candle, sit down with a blanket, and just write for. I write for 20 minutes initially, and usually I write for more than that. But just knowing that I only have to do it for or force myself to do it for 20 minutes. And I really do have to force myself. There's so many other things that, even me not having a job, there's so many other things that I would do in a day, like clean the whole apartment and clean my shower and go out on errands. And at the end of the day, it's not a 9 to 5 job. There's a lot of emotional work that goes into it. I nap an awful lot. I find that writing, napping, and then writing more really helps. um, because there's stuff that goes on during the nap. Like I used to think like we have brain waves, and there's alpha, which is like you're super, super concentrated. And then there's beta, which is only like a certain like level of stuff gets through, like things that you want to get through, like say when you're listening to podcasts. And then there's theta, which is like a meditative brain state. And that's the kind of like, it's the kind of brain state you're in when you're listening to music or like when you're meditating. And writing is something that happens when you're in theta, not when you're in alpha or beta. If you're thinking too much, and if you're too overcritical or too judgmental of your writing, you're just going to completely come up out of that meditative state. It's a kind of like it's really gorgeous place to be in when you're writing and not judging your own work. So I would say do your best to really try not to be critical, because that's only going to pull you out of the world. Try to actually go into the world and see the world of the story that you're trying to tell in as much detail as possible. And yeah, it works for me anyways, sometimes.
Hey, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing podcast. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. I have a company that I want to tell you about that I think you will definitely be interested in as a podcast listener. Family Sounds. Have you ever gone to a family reunion and traded stories and laughed with your relatives, and later you thought, gosh, I wish there was some way that we had a way to preserve those stories and preserve those memories when we're not face-to-face? Well, now you do with Family Sounds. Family Sounds can create an hour-long podcast that's just for you, that's just for your family, that tells the stories of your family and your relatives. And Family Sounds team, they're pros. They've done this before. They have lots of experience crafting stories for public broadcasting through radio and podcasts. They will use your family's voices as well as a professional narrator to tie the story together. Again, the name of the company is Family Sounds, and you can find them at family-sounds.com/books. Again, that is family-sounds.com family.com/books. Family sounds, your memories, your family in a podcast today. So check them out. family-sounds.com/books. Thanks for listening.
Winter can wreak havoc on your skin. Hey, it's Kayla, and it's not just the weather, but as a new mom, I've seen my skin change in ways that I'm not too happy about. But that's where the Skin Center has you covered. Their most popular treatment is Botox because they're the best at it. They've been ranked a top 10 provider in the nation by Allergan Aesthetics, the makers of Botox. And their best facial is what I got. It's the HydraFacial. It exfoliates, extracts, and hydrates all at once. So save your skin from these winter blues and DM at the Skin Center MD on Instagram and mention code Kayla to get $100 off your first Botox or filler treatment or any skincare package.
And then other times it's just right off.
Well, what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
Oh, wow. I'm reading Ruth Ozeki at the minute. I read Tale for a Time Being, like everyone else. It's called The Book of Form and Emptiness, and it's really, really gorgeous. I'm big on Irish writing, obviously, as an Irish writer. And I'm reading second novel of Niamh Campbell. She's a fellow Irish writer, and it's gorgeous. I read a lot of nonfiction and poetry as well, especially when I'm writing. I try not to read novels when I'm writing one, which is unhelpful because I really like to read novels. But I usually have a novel on the go, and also nonfiction and poetry. So I'm reading a Belfast poet at the minute called Gail McConnell. She's a really beautiful poet. It's called The Sun is Open. Maggie Nelson actually has a quote in front of it, which is, so it's a good one. And I'm also reading Maya Plisetskaya. She's a Russian ballerina. And it's her biography. She grew up in the Soviet era. And she's a really, really interesting lady. So that's me.
That's great. Well, where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your debut novel, Snowflake?
Oh, so my name on Twitter is at Louise _Nealon. And there's another Louise Nealon there, and I'd say she hates me because she gets tagged in an awful lot of things. She doesn't have the underscore. And then on Instagram, I'm at Lulu Nealon. And that's it. Yeah, that's me.
That's great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Louise Nealon, author of the debut novel Snowflake. The novel is available now, so go buy a copy. And Louise, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure.
Great. Thanks a lot. Now, stay tuned for a brief excerpt from the audiobook of Snowflake by Louise Nealon, narrated by Louisa Harland. Available from Harper Audio wherever audiobooks are sold.
My Uncle Billy lives in a caravan in a field at the back of my house. The first time I saw another caravan on the road, I thought that someone, another child, had kidnapped him on me. It was only then I learned caravans were meant to move. Billy's caravan never went anywhere. It was plonked on a bed of concrete blocks right beside me from the day I was born. I used to visit Billy at night when I was too afraid to go to sleep. Billy said that I was only allowed out of the house if I could see the moon from my window and if I brought him wishes from the garden. On the night of my 8th birthday, the sight of a round, fat moon sent me straight down the stairs and out the back door. The wet grass on my bare feet, the thorns of the hedge grabbing me, pulling me back by the sleeves of my pyjamas. I knew where the wishes hung out. A coven of them grew close to the caravan on the other side of the hedge. I picked them one by one, satisfied by the soft snap of stem and sticky juice of severed end, the bump of one fluffy white head into another. I cupped my hand around them as though protecting candles from the wind, careful not to knock off a single wisp of wish and lose it to the night. I twirled the syllables around my head as I collected them. Dandelion, dandelion, dandelion. Earlier that day, we had looked up the word in the big dictionary underneath Billy's bed. He explained that it came from the French term dents de lion, lion's teeth. The dandelion began a pretty thing, and the petals of its skirt were pointy and yellow like a tutu. This is its daytime dress, but the flower eventually needs to go to sleep. It withers and looks tired and haggard, and just when you think its time is up, Billy held up his fist. It turns into a clock. He uncurled his fingers and produced a white candy floss dandelion from behind his back. A puffball moon. A holy communion of wishes. He let me blow the wishes away like birthday candles. A constellation of dreams. Billy marvelled at the bouquet of wishes I presented to him when he opened the caravan door. I picked as many as I could find to impress him. I knew it, he said. I just knew that the moon would come out for your birthday. We filled an empty jam jar with water and blew the cottony heads of the dandelions into it, their feathers floating on the meniscus like tiny swimmers lying on their backs. I closed the lid on the jam jar and shook the wishes, celebrating them, watching them dance. We left the jar on the top of a dank stack of newspapers to stare out of the caravan's plastic window. Billy heated a saucepan of milk on the hob of his gas cooker. His kitchen looked like a toy I hoped to get for Christmas. It always surprised me when it worked in real life. He let me stir the milk until it bubbled and formed little white sheets of skin that I pulled away with the back of a spoon. He poured in the chocolate powder and I whisked the spoon around and around until my arm hurt. We tipped the steaming brown stream into a flask and brought it up to the roof to watch the stars. It took days for the dandelion seeds to fully submerge in the jar. They clung to the surface, hanging from their ceiling of water until it seemed like they either gave up or got bored. Just when the world thought that they were goners, tiny little green shoots appeared like plant mermaids growing tails underwater. Billy called me to come over and marvel at the stubborn little yolks, the wishes that refused to die. Today is my 18th birthday. I'm a bit nervous knocking on Billy's door. I don't really visit him at night anymore. The outside of the caravan is cold against my knuckles. It has a lining of rubber along the sides like a fridge door. I dig my nails into the squishiness and tear a bit away. It comes off in a smooth strip like a sliver of fat of a ham. There is a shuffle of papers and the squeeze of steps across the floor. Billy opens the door and tries his best not to seem surprised to see me. Well, he says, making his way back to his armchair. Sleeping Beauty, I greet him. He didn't get up for his milking this morning and I had to do it for him. Yeah, sorry about that. On my birthday and all, I say. Oh, fucking hell, he grimaces. It's a wonder St. James didn't leave you in the labba. He didn't know. Mum forgot to tell him. We're an awful shower. What one is it anyway, Sweet 16? Egotistic 18. It's a small victory to see his face scrunch into an amused grin. I wait until he turns back to fill the kettle. The offers for college came out today, I say. He turns off the tap and looks back at me. Was that today? Yeah. I got into Trinity. I'm starting next week. He looks sad. Then he grips his hands on both sides of my shoulders and lets out a sigh. I'm fucking delighted for you.
Now is the perfect time to work at Amazon. They are offering hourly jobs with great pay and even include a large sign-on bonus. No matter where you're at in the job market, you can select from a variety of available roles in your area. Join an exciting work environment and be part of a team that brings smiles to customers every day. To find the job that works for you and some extra cash, go to amazon.com/apply. That's amazon.com/apply. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
Becoming a magician takes thousands of hours, right, Ashley?
Oh, I'm not a magician. I'm a design specialist at the Container Store.
But you transform closets and pantries.
Well, I turn your most frustrating spaces into ones you love.
With a magic wand?
With Alpha, our customizable, adjustable, and affordable shelving and drawer system.
The amazing Ashley! Making daily frustration disappear.
Just doing my job.
Hurry, you only have until February 13th to save 20% when you purchase $500 in Alpha. Get started with your free design at the Container Store today.